And it was an intense 7 days discussion as the International Monetary Fund and World Bank wrapped up annual meetings in Morocco on Sunday. Our very own Ini John McCall was there giving us a report, and she's back now, and she's back with me right here in the studio. Good morning.
Feels, I don't know, different to be on this side of
exactly. So, we did miss you. You know, right here in the studio. Oh,
you did? I thought you had enough of me. I mean, all the interviews and all of the reports.
Yeah, we had all of that, but we still missed you in the studio.
Okay, great.
And, nice. Just give a sense of, you know, your experience, you know, there.
Yeah, so I'll start with the serious stuff. Those were really serious conversations going on right there. And I tell you one thing that stands out. The whole world knows that these are troubled times. It's not just about Nigeria. It's not just about Africa. It's not about Europe. Everybody agrees these are trying times. And another agreement is that the worst is not over yet. Why? The world had to deal with COVID-19 pandemic. I think that was the beginning of this round of troubles. And just when we thought we're getting over that and economies were beginning to, you know, get rebuilt, then we saw the war in Ukraine. And you know, Ukraine and Russia are two major economies when it comes to food security. So that is really feeding in. Now we have the Israel and Hamas one. We're waiting a bit, but we're seeing what it's doing to oil prices. But I mean, when you talk about energy costs, food security, the world is getting hit by the impact from the war. Inflation is all-time high. And even in countries that we see inflation tapering, you know, like the US and all of that, there's still trouble brewing underwards because energy prices are still high. So what's the way forward? I mean, even we're talking of reforms, economic reforms, and it's general. Even institutions like the World Bank and IMF are getting knocked on the head that there is a need for reform. Even reforming how they do their work, how they reach out to economies, how they provide funding, how they provide knowledge-based support to economies. And I think the Director General of World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, captured it when she said the world needs to re-globalize. Some people or some countries were left behind during the first round of globalization. So it's time to do it again. And this time, don't just do it with your friends, in her words. It's time to do it with people you did not really consider your friends or you thought were not useful to you. For instance, the emerging economy, African countries mostly, they have the young population, they have the raw materials, you know. So it's time to capture these people into your net of you know, work, of trade, of reforms, and this is how the world can survive. So
I guess it's not a time for friendly and unfriendly nations alliance. Talk to me about, obviously, the issue about debt squeeze. And I know there was a lot of conversations you know, about debt, and, you know, African countries right now are reeling under a lot of debt. Some are already getting a debt kiss.
So you know, the Secretary General of Commonwealth, she was the first person I spoke to who brought this up to say, so we say that African nations and emerging economies are reeling under the burden of debt. Have you taken time to check for the root of that debt? Country borrows money. They are so broke or they cannot meet up with payments, and then they have surcharges. The surcharge policy of the IMF is adding between 1% and 5% to their debt burden. A country that cannot even meet up, you know, with servicing of their debts. Now they have the surcharge of about 1% to 5% added to that. How are you helping those countries? And you know, it is the poor economies that are actually facing this. The big, the Western, the developed economies are not facing a whole lot of that. And so the World Bank president, Mr. Ejibanga, had said about how many percent of their financing goes to Africa. True word. But when you now include the surcharging policy on them, you are increasing the burden instead of helping them, you know. And that's on the one hand. And well, the issue of debt cancellation came up. Well, Georgieva Kristalina of IMF, managing director, had said, well, they have not even recovered from the $1 billion that they used for COVID. So issue of cancellation seems very far when it comes to the IMF at this time, because they have member countries who are also in trouble, and these are the guys who are supposed to, bring the funding. So I mean, where do you get the fund from?
But I think a country like Zambia actually got some kind of consideration.
Yes, they did. It's been in the pipeline for a long time, before they got it. Nigeria too is working on an interest-free loan of $1.5 billion with the World Bank. Well, the Minister of Finance said they hope it to come out soon, but we haven't gotten it yet. I know a lot of Nigerians have already gotten excited, but I guess the Minister of Finance, Mr. Idun, was also very quick to say that it's interest-free. Nigeria has qualified for that. Now, another thing about the issue of debt is, and Mr. Ejibanga said this, that you cannot develop. We talk about America, we talk about the UK. Did they develop on borrowing? This is a question Africa should ask.
Right.
We need to look inwards. We have the raw materials, we have the population, we have the brains. We have everything that they need. But because we are not handling it well, the developed countries, I mean, we talk about illegal mining, for instance, in Nigeria. Imagine if we had a solid mining sector. Do you know how much we can make? We don't need to borrow as Africans.
Because debt in itself is not a bad thing, but it depends on how you use that debt, and we've been lacking on use.
Obviously, so all the borrowings we've been doing are supposed to be for infrastructure. Can Nigerians come out to say the Nigerian government borrowed this at this time, and they've shown us this is the project they have used that for? So we need to look inwards. We need more transparency. We need more intentional borrowings, I guess, if we have to move forward.
All right, well, I guess we've touched on the major issues, that were discussed. And now I want to ask you about the food in Marrakech.
Oh, man.
Tell me about the food.
Oh, sorry. I hope there's no Moroccan watching this.
Right.
It was terrible for me.
Wow.
It was just bread.
Wow. Just bread.
Just hard bread. And it's not a normal bread. So that was a
interesting meat.
meat with all the negatives that go with it,
Right.
And even when you had the meat, you didn't have a lot of salt, you didn't have a lot of pepper.
So I guess Morocco, they need to work on their food, basically.
So you go to a restaurant and then you ask for food and they give you they're grilled and you don't taste any pepper. Come on, I'm a Nigerian, I eat pepper.
How was the weather, though? The
weather was harsh, like the northern parts of Nigeria, really harsh and all of that. But I have to tell you this. What I noticed in Marrakech is there's the intention to build Marrakech for tourism. They make billions of dollars from tourism, and they build their concept all around their culture. Very interesting. Even the logo, for the World Bank was one part of the emblem of their culture. So we don't throw away what we have. What we have, our culture, is what makes us different. And they've done very well on that. They ensure the roads are good. Their citizens are tourist conscious, so they know that, oh, this is a tourist and we need your money. So they treat you well. Do you get? And they call Marrakech a city of luxury. Things are really expensive, because they want you to come there and spend your money. But I tell you, they also create, I forgot to bring like key holders and all those little things, which you can buy for like 5 dirhams and all of that. Now, in Nigeria, we have those things. But if you want to buy those things and you go to areas, they make it really expensive. So even tourists are discouraged.
Right.
But in Marrakech, they do those things with the consciousness that even with your little amount of money, you can get them. So it is tourist friendly.
So here we need to work on our tourism.
We have a lot to work on.
What I love about tourism is you don't have to deal with the issue of FDI, repatriation. They're bringing the money
Just
in
come
and they're
spend your money.
spending it right here.
I know how much I spent in 1 week in Marrakech, and that has gone to their
Well, we'll change some of that, whatever you brought back, and you give me all of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
John McWhite, giving us experience from Marrakech. Thank you so much. It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
All right.